Hey, you guys, and welcome to American Culture. So, today I wanted to take you guys on a journey. I wanted to let you watch me paint this picture and think out my thoughts as I'm doing this artistic stuff that I do. However, when the time came, I didn't necessarily want to be on camera. So, I was sitting here anyway. I said, why not just talk and do this cover over? So, with that being said, today we're going to discuss Christianity as a whole. I know it seems like it is such a broad topic, but those of you who have been around me kind of know that I've taken a little bit of a step back from church. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand, love the teaching. There's nothing going on with the church, and I will do whatever the Lord tells me to do in regards to an established institution of worshiping Christ. With that being said, there's no way you're going to convince me that the Bible is a literal book. And when being around so many Christians, like they think all of this stuff had to happen. Red Seas had to part, bushes had to talk, we had to sacrifice and smear, but we had to do all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are things about the Bible, stories that are 100% true, but so many of them are a metaphor. And you guys, you will figure out along your journey, those of you who have walked a similar path as I have, that there is a lot of research and a lot of truth out there that links the writings of the Bible to be more of a cerebral explanation, or how you, the human, work with your brain and your body, rather than to be taken literally. There are so many stories, like even as simple as the woman at the well, that can be taken apart and turned into a complete metaphorical masterpiece. For example, why did Jesus have to go through Samaria to get to the well? The well is this place within you that if you just keep digging deeper and deeper, eventually you will get to the living water. A lot of us have experienced the living water, but we don't seem to have access to it at all times. And that's something that I recently changed for myself. But the thing is, the well is on the outside of Samaria. And Samaria was this agriculturally based city, but it was run by like politicians and very rich people. And so you kind of see something like that happening today. God told us back in Genesis that we were supposed to subdue and cultivate the land and do all this other stuff and be multiplicitous. The thing is, we've forgotten about my primary purpose is to cultivate, which is to grow things. Instead, we're all trying to, not all of us, I mean, obviously the ones that have changed their minds, but the people who haven't, and there are many of them out there, still want to chase after being the king or the queen or whatever. They want to be that political side of things when that's not really what God ever had intention. The other part of that is Samaria made their own money and they love to show off the opulence, but the opulence came from the pagan side, which even still today, most of the holidays, you guys, that we do, like Christmas and Easter, those are pagan holidays. And the one on Christmas has everything to do with the way that the sun was setting and all this other stuff, and not necessarily the birth of Christ. And when you talk about Easter, I'll let you go ahead and Google those origins yourself. And then once you start doing stuff like that, you start to realize, wait a minute, there's a little bit more to this. Jesus had to go through Samaria because it was this very opulent place that was really focused on hierarchy, kind of knew that it got all of its resources from doing what God said do, which is to do, cultivate, grow things on the earth, but they still went for riches. And so you have to go through that whole scenario, and not to talk about they were just prejudiced and separatists and all this other stuff. And many of us are today. Their kind of prejudice would be known as our narcissism. I know, you guys, it's so interesting when you make this connection with a lot of people, and I'll try not to say most, but once you kind of cross over the bridge of not thinking negative all the time, and we'll get to that in a little bit, you start to realize there are a lot of people out there that were just as asleep as I was. Whoa. Anyway, what happens is once you get through Samaria, he sees this woman at the well. The woman is feminine energy. She's the essence of that, which is the reason why God says she has five husbands. Go tell them. But again, you'd have to read the whole story. The five husbands had to do with your different five senses. Long story short, when you think about that particular story, it was Jesus going through pretty much all of his worldliness that he had to get to the well. And there is where this masculine energy meets this feminine energy and explains what we need to do to get back on track. Because a lot of times it's our feminine energy that controls our senses, you guys. And when that gets off kilter, we stop doing things naturally. When men become more effeminate, they stop really doing manly things. When women have to become more masculinized, we stop doing womanly things. And so it's usually that masculine energy that recognizes, hold on, there's something off here and we need to bring our feminine energy back in check. And it happens on both sides of the equation. And so that's what was happening at that well site. Now, another part of it is that the disciples, they went ahead and left Jesus. They were constantly doing that, leaving Jesus, the source of living water, to go back into the city and try to get it. And that's just kind of significant and symbolic of our own journeys. There are plenty of times where we might even get to the well. We might hear that podcast. We might read that book. We might go to that service that says it is right here. And there are plenty of times when you even gotten the ideas in your heads and all this other stuff. It's right here, but you still decide that you need to go back to wherever you came from and dabble in that a little bit. You see, like I said, you guys, that's just one story out of many. And I'm sorry if I was all over the place, but I was thinking and talking at the same time and not taking any time to like re go over my thoughts. But that's just one particular story, you guys, where it's it makes it so much more clear once you look at it metaphorically as opposed to looking at it like this had to happen. Yes, it did. Jesus and the woman at the well. He shouldn't have liked her, but he did. Now, the thing is, your masculine and feminine energy need to marry. There needs to be a balance, whatever that balance is for you. It needs to be there. Some women, they're very balanced with more feminine energy. But we get really, really out of balance when we have to take on masculine energy, which is a masculine role in life. And that's what I'll talk to you about now. And then I'll get off of here. The reason why I told you that other story of the woman in the well was to kind of highlight that masculine feminine dynamic. And the way that our minds work is we conceptualize it first and then we see it. There's not a place that we've been or will go that didn't start out in our mind saying, okay, you should go there. There were even far off things that we call manifesting that were always available to us, but our energy had to rise to be able to meet the circumstances and things that we were looking for. Long story short, when you take either a man or a woman and you make one of them a little bit more of the opposite of their genetic makeup made them. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, we all have a different type of balance. It's not always 50-50. But let's take a woman per se. When you put her in a house and she is a single mom and her mind is attuned to negativity. Now, here's the thing, you guys, and we'll take a little sidetrack and get back to this. When we think negative thoughts, please understand that there's an alternate universe out there. And this is a very controversial thing where all of those negative thoughts are currently being lived out. But you have made a commitment to see good and to see positive, or to at least continue to see what you're seeing, which is a much deeper story for later on. You've made a commitment to this particular thought process and this reality that only when you give enough attention to it and then make that negative true to you does it actually appear in your world. And so a lot of women are tuned in when they have to be like single mothers and they have to pay all the bills and they have to do, everything is pretty much on their own. And even when they were in a relationship, they provided. What ends up happening is that they and you can test this, you guys, hormonally start to develop a little bit more hormonal, start having a few more issues when it comes to those genital organs that we have, our uterus and fallopian tubes and endometriosis and fibroids. It all is linked to having to take on a very protected masculine energy. You experience out in real life the same way you experience it in your body, and you experience it in your mind. It's not until we meet a masculine energy in the form of either noticing it ourselves or in somebody else that can help you to get back in check. As a woman, you'd have to be able to meet a male in whatever dynamic. It could be friend, it could be family, it could be lover, or so forth, if you guys are capable of growing to that dynamic, which a lot of people aren't. Anyway, you have to be able to meet some type of masculine energy that puts your lack of feminine energy into perspective. And there has to be a desire to go back to simply being a woman again. And that's what kind of leads us back into this whole, oh, okay, God, what do you need me to do? in order to have all this stuff. Because I would like to get married. I'd like to have kids. I'd like to do all that stuff. And you've told me it's going to happen. So what do we have to do? That's when we've run into what masculinity is creating for us. It's creating a brick wall that nobody can get through. It's creating difficult friendship dynamics that have to be built on each other's drama and pain that they're having to suffer through, like they're the strong man of their life. It has to be built on just basically the things that we've seen. And so you kind of realize, wait a minute, that's not going to work out very well with what God has inherently put in me. And I do believe that everybody kind of has, especially when they get older and more mature, like a wake up call of, wait a minute, this is what a girl is supposed to do. And no, we're not talking about the other, what that, we're not talking about that, you guys. We're just not. And so when, again, lastly, I look at the Bible, the my perception of it does not necessarily match up with Christianity the way that a lot of people would like, and I don't really know where to go with that other than to in my own direction. So that's something that I'm in like a middle phase, like a lot of people. I'm in like a little bit of a middle phase where the old has completely fallen away, and I really have no desire, and I'll talk about that in the next video, to go back and get it. Um, but I haven't quite gotten to the promised land. I'm on the other side of the river, but God hasn't specifically told me where I need to go. But He has kind of opened up to a level of clarity that I didn't have before. And I got here because I was willing to surrender and just feel like, you know what, I'm done. I got it. I don't really want to be in control anymore. That's my problem. Every time that I take the reins, I can't see what God is trying to do here. So it's much better with the Lord. Let me get on board with that. And it took me quite a few years to get there. All of this is stuff that I will talk about in another video. But like I said, and I'll end it here, the way that I think about the Bible just isn't quite in line with the way a lot of Christians see it. And so I'm in an in between point where I know my promised land is going to be me and other people who think like me, and not very many Christians around to really contend with that. That's probably a good thing. I know what God's sending me, where He's sending me now. But I have a ways to go before I see the city through this desert. We'll talk later, you guys. Have a blessed day.